If you're one who enjoys hockey video games in the modern age, there's a chance you may have grown frustrated with today's offerings. Truth be told, EA Sports hasn't been offering up much in the way of innovation for hockey video games, and if we're being fair, what more can you really expect from sports games anymore? Sports games exist seemingly to bleed you dry through microtransactions, so ensuring you have new features isn't the highest of priorities unless there's a way to generate revenue. So if you're frustrated with hockey video games in 2025, you're in luck, because there's about 40 years worth of puck titles for you to try out, or go back and revisit. And in this episode, we'll go back and take a look at what was on offer during the 8-bit era, specifically from our friends at Nintendo. The earliest hockey offering from Nintendo wasn't on the entertainment system, but on the Famicom Disk System. Stick Hunter Exciting Ice Hockey was released in 1987 in Japan, and while it does have a catchy name, the gameplay is, well, take a look here. Hard to bag on a game from 1987, but Stick Hunter isn't fondly remembered as a solid hockey video game experience because it really isn't one. For one, hockey is a game where you shoot the puck in the net. That's pretty simple. In a hockey video game, this action is usually assigned to a button. In Stick Hunter, there's no button to shoot the puck, and this makes little sense. You have two face buttons, why not use one of them to shoot? You would assume that one would pass and the other would shoot. However, that's not the case in this edition of Exciting Ice Hockey. To shoot, you basically turn your player toward the net and then they shoot. How? I have no idea. Shooting the puck isn't really clear. At first, I thought it was me, but even when I looked it up, it appears that I'm not alone in my lack of tactic. On the surface, it's like many hockey games of the era with international flavor. There are 8 countries to choose from in the game, including hockey superpowers, the Soviet Union, and England. There's no strategy or advantage to one team over the other. The teams are simple palette swaps and nothing more. You can choose different difficulty settings, but to be fair, the first level of difficulty is usually enough for most players. With the challenge of shooting the puck making it difficult to even score in this game, ramping up the difficulty isn't really necessary. The game employs a weird turning mechanic, where your player will be still on the ice until you physically turn them slowly to face the puck. Once facing the puck, then you can point them in that direction with the D-pad, and they'll eventually skate that way. If you hold down the A button, your player will skate faster, which is necessary to get up and down the ice in this game, but I also found it led to more penalties than anything else. It's also tough to see what player you're controlling at any given time. It just seems to switch on its own. It's kind of hard to explain, not that any of it really matters. You need to control the goalie as well, but not that that even seems to matter, since placing the goalie in a position to stop the puck, well, it just seems to go through anyway. Stick Hunter Exciting Ice Hockey is a product of its time, but as we'll see next, just because the game was released in the late 80s doesn't mean it's not any good. After 40 years, what more is there to say about NES Ice Hockey? This Nintendo cornerstone is still a joy to play all these years later, despite its simplistic gameplay style. Similar to Stick Hunter, all of the teams in ice hockey are of international variety, with a couple of different nations added to the mix. What makes ice hockey so much fun to play is, well, it's just fun to play. The gameplay is smooth and the control is easy to navigate. Players have the ability to pass and shoot with ease, and controlling the player and the goalie are simple to do. I guess the easiest way to describe ice hockey is that you're in full control. That may not seem like a stretch in an 8-bit title, but for some of these games that had tight controls, having them fluid is not always experienced. The small aspect that brings variety to ice hockey is actually a neat little mechanic. Being able to choose the type of skater you dress comes with its own advantages and disadvantages. You can choose the skinny skater, quick and zippy all over the ice, but easily knocked off the puck and has a weak shot. or you can use the regular skater who's a little bit slower but skates with more balance and a harder shot than the skinny player. Or the last option is the fatty. Big and strong, they shoot the puck like a cannon, but are much slower than everyone else on the ice. The combination you choose is totally up to you, and depending on what your opponent ices, it can make for a lot of fun. Suffice to say, if you're looking for a fun 1 or 2 player experience, you can do much, much worse than ice hockey on the NES. And after all of these years, it's still such a blast to play. Where ice hockey provided more of an arcade experience, Konami's Blades of Steel leaned a little bit more towards a simulated hockey experience in many ways. I won't spend a ton of time on Blades of Steel, but if you want more of a comprehensive look, I released a previous video that definitely gets into more detail. What I will say is that Blades of Steel offers another great NES hockey experience, but with a different flavor. Gone are international squads, and in its place, teams born from major hockey markets of the era. Blades of Steel is definitely a slower experience than the hockey titles that came before it, but there's a lot here that keep it a solid offering of the sport on Nintendo's 8-bit flagship. It's a game that won't steer you wrong, and is certainly worth a playthrough all these years later. A few years ago, I wrote a blog giving my thoughts on this 1991 release, and spoiler alert, it wasn't very favorable. Wayne Gretzky Hockey on the NES attempted to capitalize on the real-life popularity of hockey's biggest star, licensing the Great One for his own video game for Nintendo. Unfortunately, unlike Gretzky, this game is not good. Sometimes it's easy to dump on some retro games for being a product of their time, and while I can appreciate that Wayne Gretzky Hockey wanted to try something different, it just didn't work for me. The overhead view is certainly different, but look at this. It's just kind of ugly. Like, what do we have here? Balls and sticks? Those don't really look like hockey players. And then listen to the game. Ugh, not good. The one thing I will give credit for is having licenses from the National Hockey League Players Association. Gone are the generic national teams, and in its place are some real-world NHL cities with authentic players. While it's cool to see that in the game, it still doesn't do enough to make this title worth revisiting these years later. The A button is used to both pass and shoot, while the B button calls for a pass, or as the manual says, demand a pass from your teammate. To change players, you use the select button, which is an odd choice. The best part about this game may be that it has pause music, but even that's a bit of a stretch. I do get a kick out of trying to read the scrolling text on the score clock, but even that's a chore because the screen never stays up long enough to really get a chance to read what it's trying to say. But look at me, focusing on one of the best parts about this game being something that has nothing to do with the hockey gameplay. Wayne Gretzky Hockey is not great. Now, this is a fun one. Ike Neketsu Hockey Boo, I guess, is River City Ransom on skates. It translates to Go Go Neketsu Hockey Club Slip and Slide Madness, which may be just the best title I've ever heard for a video game. It was developed by Technos Japan, released in 1992, and as you can see, it's most definitely part of the Kunio-kun universe. Basically, super athlete and all-around stud Cuneo wants to take the high school hockey team to glory, similar to the dodgeball and soccer football clubs of the time. The team sucks, and if they continue to suck, well then the hockey team will be disbanded. There's a lot to say about this game, likely more than I'll get into here, as this title needs its own separate video, but here's the simple breakdown. The aforementioned story mode sees you play in a variety of arenas versus different teams. Once you defeat that team, you can wear their uniforms in the next game, and each uniform has different stats or abilities afforded to them. You can do trick shots or overpowered shots. If you've played Super Dodgeball, you kinda know what to expect here. There's the scenario mode, which you play through, or there's a battle mode for 2 or more players. There's also a number of rinks to play in, some of which are typical normal rinks, whereas others have different features, such as bouncing off walls and skating around landmines, or just rough conditions creating havoc. Like I said, there's a lot more than can be said here, but as far as the gameplay goes, it's pretty fun. The first game in the scenario mode was quite easy, but the difficulty really ramps up after that, and this is just a unique and different hockey experience. It's definitely for those who like their hockey less serious and more over the top, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. This is a great experience all around. For the more serious hockey gamer, Pro Sport Hockey finally provides an experience featuring licenses from the National Hockey League Players Association, so that means real-life NHL players. Released later in the NES lifecycle, Pro Sport Hockey also saw life on the Super Nintendo, but we'll focus on the NES version here. So, NHL teams? Kind of. Players? Absolutely. So this should make for a great game right out of the box, right? Well, having licensed players is nice, and for an old-timer like myself, seeing some of these classic players in Pro Sport Hockey is a nice blast of nostalgia. And while the NHL teams aren't really licensed to be in the game, team logos showcase the color scheme of the teams of the time, but when you start the game up, that's kind of where the similarities end. Calgary and Edmonton, gone are the red, white, and yellow, or the blue and orange, and in its place, purple and puke green. It's not really the end of the world, but it almost feels like they go all the way with the logos, but stop at the jerseys. Even if they were kind of close, that would be nice. Colors aside, it looks and feels like a hockey game, which is nice, but the gameplay is only kind of so-so. It feels stiff, and the controls are the same. When you pass the puck, sometimes it goes to where you're passing it, but most of the time it just moves forward. Shooting works, but you really gotta be in the open to get a shot off. Most of the time, the other team is on you instantly, and you're lucky to get the puck through. Like Neketsu Hockey Boo, the game clock goes down in real time, so 5-minute periods are exactly that. In both games, that's fine, but when the game starts to drag after about a period and a half, a fast clock speed option would be nice. There's a few different modes in the game, including Exhibition, a Super Cup tournament, and a training mode. The training mode is just a shootout, and if you choose the defense option, you play as the goalie. Only it's kind of pointless. I just stood there and stopped every shot every time I tried. The Super Cup tournament is exactly what you think, and includes password options to keep your progress, but definitely one of those AVGN rage-inducing password options. Is this game awful? No. But even with the player likeness, it's still not the best hockey game on the NES. The last game on this list is a bit of a stretch because it never got released on the platform technically. Hit the Ice was an arcade gem and did see life on the Super Nintendo and Game Boy, but a planned release for the NES never happened. but oh man, I wish it did. Hit the Ice on the NES is nothing like its arcade counterpart. The game is an RPG. Yes, a hockey role-playing game. Sure, you can play the simple 2-on-2 hockey experience, but the quest mode looks more like Dragon Warrior than Blades of Steel. Very broadly, your goal is to win the Video Hockey League Championship, so you venture through the overworld and have random encounters with other hockey teams. These encounters result in a quick 60-second game. If you win, you gain gold and experience points for your players. If you tie, it's back to the overworld, and if you lose, you go back to the beginning of the map. But for your progress, you do get a password. The ultimate goal is to level up and defeat each team at their home stadium throughout the course of this world. The story introduction is also there, setting everything up prior to playing. Food replenishes health and gives you experience, and like traditional RPGs, you visit homes, you search for loot, and you buy items to progress to the next level. I'm glancing over this rather quickly because the game, once again, probably needs more of an in-depth dive than I'm going to give it here, but this game is a really neat and unique experience. The gameplay is aggressive, punching and kicking with skates. They substitute body checks, and similar to other games, you pass, shoot, and control the goalies. One nice option is the ability to choose the length of a game in a regular matchup. Certainly ensures the game doesn't overstay its welcome at any point. And if you have something like an EverDrive, you can use the NES 4-score on your original console and go full out 2 versus 2 with and against 3 other friends locally. As I said, this is a much different experience from the arcade game, and certainly a different take from what was released on the Super Nintendo and Game Boy. Perhaps one day we'll come back to this one and dive into the franchise proper. Side note, the game was fully reviewed in Volume 49 of Nintendo Power, but was ultimately, once again, never published. Hockey games on Nintendo's flagship of platforms certainly saw a number of different takes on the sport, all with their own unique styles and experiences. While they all boast different levels of value and quality, one thing is certain: there's definitely an 8-bit style hockey game suited just for you. Personally, nothing tops ice hockey or Blades of Steel for me, but to each their own. Do you have a preference? Feel free to leave a comment and let me know of your favorite hockey NES game. Thank you for watching, and remember, keep that stick on the ice.